Hello, beautiful people. I have an amazing story to share with you today. Not only will it help you improve your English listening skills, but it will also remind you of the incredible power of kindness, courage, and never giving up, no matter how hard the journey gets. So, sit back, relax, and let this inspiring tale take you on an unforgettable adventure. The lanterns beyond fog. The ferry's engine coughed, like an old man who had seen too many storms. Amelia stood near the railing, the smell of salt and diesel oil wrapping around her. The island she had called home for the last 5 years was shrinking into the mist. Her suitcase, a battered leather thing that once belonged to her father, rested by her side. Inside it were the barest essentials: a few clothes, a notebook, and a folded letter she had never read. She had promised herself she'd open it when the time felt right. That time never came. "First time leaving?" a voice asked. She turned. A young man in a dark coat leaned casually against the railing. His eyes were unreadable, as though they were looking at something far beyond the fog. "Leaving?" "Yes," Amelia said quietly. "For good?" "I don't know." The man smiled faintly. "Funny. I'm going there for the first time." Amelia glanced back at the island, now a small shadow. "Then maybe we've swapped places." In some strange way, the ferry jolted, and they both held the railing. The man didn't introduce himself, and Amelia didn't ask. Some meetings were meant to stay nameless. 2 winters ago, Amelia had been sitting in the island's small cafe when she first heard about the Lantern Festival. "They light them every year," the cafe owner had told her, sliding over a cup of tea. "Paper lanterns, hundreds of them. They float beyond the cliffs. Some say, if you follow one, it leads you to something you've lost." She had laughed politely then. She had lost enough in her life to know that nothing truly lost was ever returned. But that winter, she had gone to the cliffs anyway. The lanterns had lifted into the sky like a slow, glowing river. She didn't follow one, but she wished she had. The letter in her suitcase had been written by her father before he disappeared. The official word was missing at sea, but Amelia had always suspected there was more to it. Her father wasn't careless. He knew the tides better than most knew their own heartbeat. The night before she left the island, she took the letter out and held it under the lamp. She even slipped a finger under the envelope's seal. Then the wind rattled her window, and she decided against it. Not tonight, maybe not ever. On the ferry, the man in the dark coat asked, "Why did you live there so long?" Amelia thought for a moment. "Because I was waiting." "For what?" "I thought I'd know when it happened," she said, half smiling. The man didn't push further, but when they docked at the mainland, he turned to her and said something strange. "Sometimes, the thing you're waiting for is waiting for you in return, and it hates to be kept waiting too long." Then he disappeared into the crowd. A week later, Amelia was wandering the market of a coastal town when she stumbled upon a stall selling old nautical maps. Most were yellowed, curling at the edges. One caught her eye. It showed her island, but in a way she'd never seen before. The cliffs were marked with tiny, hand-drawn lanterns, and there was a thin line leading out into open water. At the end of the line was a small sketch, a lighthouse that didn't exist on any modern map. "Where is this lighthouse?" she asked the old man behind the stall. He studied her face, as if deciding whether she deserved an answer. "If you're meant to see it, you will," he said, and refused to speak of it again. Instead of heading to the city like she'd planned, Amelia booked a room in a weathered inn near the harbor. She told herself it was only for the night, but she stayed 3. Each evening, she walked along the piers, watching the fishermen mend their nets, smelling the briny air. On the 4th morning, a small fishing boat's captain offered her a ride. "Anywhere the gulls will follow," he said. She almost said no. Almost. Half a day into the trip, a sudden squall swallowed the horizon. The sea became a boiling dark mass, and rain lashed at her face like needles. The captain shouted something about turning back, but Amelia, clutching the old map in her jacket, felt an unshakable pull forward. They fought the storm for hours before the clouds finally broke. The captain pointed toward a faint light, blinking in the distance. A lighthouse. The lighthouse rose from a jagged outcrop of rock, its white paint peeling under decades of wind. An elderly woman in a wool sweater stood at the entrance. She looked at Amelia without surprise, as though expecting her. "You're late," the woman said simply. Inside, the air smelled of salt and candle wax. Shelves of books lined the walls. On a table sat a lantern unlike any Amelia had ever seen. It was made of glass, its frame carved with patterns of waves and gulls. "Why am I here?" Amelia asked. "To return something," the keeper said, "and to take something back." The keeper led her to a small desk drawer. Inside was a tin box. When Amelia opened it, her breath caught. Inside was her father's compass, the one he had always kept in his pocket. "He left it here?" she whispered. The keeper didn't answer. Instead, she handed Amelia the glass lantern. "When the fog comes, light this. It will show you what you're meant to see." That night, the fog rolled in so thick Amelia could barely see her hands. She lit the lantern. The light didn't shine like ordinary light. It pulsed, almost like a heartbeat. Through the fog, a faint path appeared over the water, shimmering like moonlight on glass. She followed it, rowing a small boat the keeper had given her. The path twisted and curved, sometimes vanishing entirely before reappearing ahead. Then, in the mist, a shadow took shape. A boat, old and weathered, with a lone figure standing at its bow. It was her father. He didn't look older. If anything, he looked exactly as she remembered, the day before he disappeared. "Amelia," he said softly, smiling, "I thought you'd never follow." Tears blurred her vision. "Where have you been?" "There are places in the fog," he said, "where time works differently. I couldn't leave until someone came for me." They spoke for what felt like hours, though the lantern's light never dimmed. When she asked if he could come back with her, he shook his head. "Not yet, but take the compass. When you're ready, it will bring you here again." The path back was harder to follow, the fog heavier. By the time Amelia returned to the lighthouse, dawn was breaking. The keeper was waiting by the door. "You saw him," she said, not as a question, but as a certainty. Amelia nodded, clutching the compass. "Then you'll come back, when the tides turn," the keeper said. "Until then, live." Months later, Amelia stood again on the cliffs during the Lantern Festival. Hundreds of glowing lights lifted into the night sky. She let one slip from her hands, a lantern she had painted herself, with waves and gulls like the carvings on the glass lantern. Somewhere beyond the fog, she knew her father would see it. Amelia still didn't read the letter. Not yet, but it no longer felt like something unfinished. It felt like a bridge she would cross, in its own time. In the meantime, she traveled. She painted. She laughed with strangers. She lived, because she had learned something. In the fog, life isn't about waiting for the right moment to arrive. Sometimes, it's about lighting the lantern and stepping into the mist, even if you can't see where the path will lead. One quiet evening, years later, Amelia sat by the harbor with her suitcase and the compass. The needle began to spin, slowly at first, then faster until it pointed firmly out to sea. She smiled, finally opening her father's letter. It read, "When you find the light, follow it. I'll be there." And without hesitation, she set sail. Thank you for listening to this story. I hope it not only helped you practice your English, but also reminded you that kindness and courage can light the way through even the darkest moments. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep believing in the power of good.